we had that pushed that fire to the east of the 45 road. For folks who are familiar with the 45 road system that goes up to Edison Butte Snow Park, you can see the snow park just at the top of the screen. Fire came over the 45 road there. Everything from essentially the northern point. I don't know if you're aware of where the Edison Trail system would intersect Little Lava Fire, some of you are nodding your head, but there is containment lines from Edison Trail system on that north perimeter of Little Lava. It comes all the way out to the 45 road, all the way along the southern flank of this fire, and all the way over to the westernmost edge around that fire. So I describe that as a catcher's mitt, where essentially firefighters have blocked that fire from moving in the directions of our critical values of risk, the community and the property and the infrastructure. As you move over into this area just south of Sheridan Butte, I know it always looks flat and not very far on the map, but you get into really remote, rugged terrain with less opportunities for direct containment features on that fire. So long term, I wanted to share the overall strategy. Indirect control lines have been identified in that area. They're away from the fire's edge. So we're using a lot of advanced imaging and predictive service capability, looking at the forecast, trying to see if that fire would ever reach those indirect control lines. Right now, I would tell you it's not likely that it will ever reach that. Can I guarantee that? No. So we will have firefighters in place assessing that, and if the conditions warrant, we'll be prepared to scale up appropriately to utilize those indirect control lines in the future if needed. It's September 20th. Every day that passes, we're one day closer to a weather event that would eventually, would end fire season for us. If you could tell me the exact day of the weather event, it would make our decisions a lot easier. So we deal in terms of probabilities, right, and not certainties. But this is based on best available science right now. We think the probability of that ever reaching those indirect control lines is low. But we do have some warming and drying expected for next week. We'll see what that does. But I would also remind folks from a fire behavior standpoint, the directions, and predominant wind flow and weather patterns here, this fire perimeter reflects that, where it's wanted to move from west to east. And so again, those control lines around it build that catcher's mitt that currently blocks it from spreading in that direction, and primarily where our values are. So that I know is a focus area tonight is Little Lava for a lot of you, so I wanted to go in depth there. But I also want to talk a little bit about what's going on east of 97, because we have, over approximately 30 fires under Northwest Team 3's management that we got approximately 12 days ago. Most of those are in patrol status with line around them, so we're really down to a small number of fires now. So there's been a lot of great suppression action. We got a really great handoff from all the local resources here that worked really hard during that lightning event to contain almost all those fires, but we're still down to approximately half a dozen that we're working. As we come east, again, here's 97. Here we are on the map. As we come down to the southeast, it's pretty easy to spot both Firestone and flat top fires. So we'll start north on the Firestone fire. What you see here, all the little red dots are just isolated heat, but you'll notice that there's less heat on the perimeter on this fire. Happy to report that containment lines are established all the way around Firestone fire, and we'd say that probability of success of keeping it within that footprint is high, but we still have work to do. We talk about mop up. That's how we describe the work we do from the containment line to go in, seek out and destroy any hot spots on that fire's edge to make sure that an ember couldn't loft in the wind and get outside those containment lines. So a lot of mop up, reinforcing those lines, but we do have control lines all the way around Firestone fire with what we call black line all the way to the line. So there's not unburdened portions of fuel right adjacent to the line. So probability of success high there, but still a lot of work to occur on Firestone. As we come south, you see the flat top fire here. more of the same. You know, similar to Firestone fire, we now have containment lines all the way around that fire. A lot of mop-up, patrol. There was a piece of what we call indirect hand line there, where we did have some and roads that we're using as a control feature. Some fuel between those roads and the fire line. Crews are in there today completing that firing operation, and as of right now, that's going very well with favorable winds, and they anticipate success on that. And so with that will really complete all the completed firing operations on all those fires within our, what I call our theater of operations. And so really a lot of emphasis on mop-up, as we talked about, and patrol, and really trying to protect our investment on all the good work that those firefighters have made. And so I don't know if some of you were present last time, but certainly much improved since the last time we met. So happy to report that. We're still not out of fire season yet. We've got some more work to do for sure. Know that there's plans for that. There's going to be another organization that follows us with firefighters in place to continue to watch all these fires and take any necessary actions based on, you know, current predicted weather forecasts, fire behavior, and what we're seeing the fires doing. But we're certainly in a much better position than we were two weeks ago. And so with that, we want to talk this evening about some things that attributed to a lot of the success that we've had on this fire. I'm going to try and stand carefully. Am I okay over here, Ben? So I know a lot of you, first time I've met you, other than maybe you were here the other night. I'm actually from Spokane, Washington, up in Spokane County, Fire District 3. Probably never heard of it. You may have heard of the Gray Road fire. Last year, that was in our district. We lost 356 structures in a single burn period. And I talk about the Greater Bend area as really the Spokane of Oregon. I think there's a lot of similarities that we see in both communities, and certainly from how we look at wildfire. And actually, my formal education's in forestry. I started with the Forest Service, did a lot of work in timber sales and forest ecology, and road construction and all that. But I just simply share that to tell you that I have a background in wildfire and forestry, and I want to speak a little to what we're seeing on a national level. When we look at Washington and Oregon, the acres burned have been doubling every decade for the last 30 years. And I'll tell you, our suppression workforce is the most capable workforce we've had in history. Our conditions out on the ground are changing. And that's for a whole host of reasons. We're seeing longer fire seasons with warmer temperatures, but we're also seeing maybe less of our historical logging practices or grazing, or things that would reduce the fuels. And then on top of that, we've been in an extended drought. So we're seeing forest health issues with beetle infestations. And then when we look out at our forests, a lot of us think that this is what the forests looked like historically. They didn't. And so while we do a great job suppressing fires, we dispatched over 100 firefighting apparatus, not including law enforcement, in the first 6 hours of the Gray Road fire. Firefighters did a tremendous job. One life was lost in those 350 structures. The reality is it could have been much, much worse. And so I share all that to create context around the challenge that we have in the wildfire environment. We have more folks, and I'm sure you love living in this community. You live here for a reason, that love being in that, what we call the WUI environment, the wildland-urban interface, right? And the more people we put in the environment, the more starts we have. And again, you look at this event, this was caused by lightning. And so as much as we invest in suppression, I think we also need to focus on what we can do outside of wildfire season, or the core wildfire season, to help ensure that we're prepared for the next fire, which is, I can't tell you when it will be, but the reality of suppressing all fires and not having even more fires, that's not a reality for us. And the time to prepare for an emergency is before we have an emergency. And so that kind of sets the stage for our next speaker, but I just want to let you know that the work that they've done here on this forest absolutely contributed to a positive outcome in helping us to get this fire stopped. And it was work that occurred before we showed up. And so that work needs to continue into the future. I think that's our best path forward to become what I would call a fire adaptive community, where fires are going to be on the landscape, and we're going to continue to have fires, but we're ensuring that we're prepared for that. So with that, I think that's a good place to turn it over, but I think you're going to see some really exciting correlations with where these fires were stopped based on some of the great work that was completed here. So with that, I'm excited to introduce Kevin Stock. Kevin, you're up.
Thanks, Cody. And next up, yes, we have our Ben Fort Rock District Ranger, Kevin Stock, who's going to talk a little bit more about those fuels treatments. And just so you know, we will have some time for questions at the end. So if you have questions for any of our speakers, as well as a few other guests in the room, we will have some time to get to those at the end.
Good evening, everybody. Like I said, I'm Kevin Stock. I'm the District Ranger for Ben Fort Rock. I've been on this district since 1995, and I'm going to go back a little bit farther than that history to talk a little bit about where we've been, what we've done, and where we are now. So, you know, you look around here at the forest and around here, and they're shaped by a lot of things. Is that me? Sorry. All right. Well, that was good. All right, so they're shaped by a lot of things. One of the big ones was, you know, we had the two big mills in Bend, Shovel and Hickson and Brookscale, and they did a pretty good job of logging off a lot of old growth pine, especially down along the Deschutes River and on the flats. If you look at the 1933 Osborne pictures from our lookouts, you would see a pretty wide swath of cut down trees all the way around where those big pine were. Where they didn't go in and log was places like up there along Mount Bachelor. And the reason why is because, one, the terrain's not very flat. It's not an easy place to log. It's forested lava, which is terrible for logging. The logs blow to pieces. And the species up there are not ponderosa pine. They're mountain hemlock, which are a very poor quality tree for logging. So those areas have remained untouched, and so that's where our old growth is now. It's up there along the Cascade Crest where they didn't log, and it's up in some of these areas that are roadless areas. And we know those areas are full of old growth trees. As you know, there are animals that really like that habitat, so we try to keep some of those areas around on the forest. But as they start aging, and they're getting pretty close to that climax age now, they're really susceptible to pest and other things that are kind of tapping them out. And as you look at those ortho pictures around Mount Bachelor, you can kind of see those rings of beetle kill and dead trees up there. So that's kind of what's up in those areas, and we've been well aware of that for a lot of years because those trees have been around for hundreds of years. So when I first got here, the community of Sun River I used to be a firefighter before I was a district ranger, and when I run an engine, we were all afraid to be the first engine on the fire in Sun River. You had shake roasts, you had cedar on siding, the community was full of trees, and there wasn't a lot of fuels treatment around here. And we all knew that if a fire got started in that kind of environment with roundabouts and a lot of visitors, it was going to be a hot mess, and none of us wanted to be the first one to catch that hot mess. So I'm just kind of setting that as kind of where I came into it. Those kind of force factors were there. We recognize that, and over the years, a lot of work's been done both externally on Forest Service land and internally within Sun River, and I think we need to recognize that work that's been done. you can't treat every acre on the forest. It's not realistic, and it also isn't what people want, right? They don't want us to go out and treat every acre. They want us to manage for many things. So what we had to do was look at where are your values of risk and strategically place those fuels treatments on the landscape between areas of concern, like that Mount Bachelor area, that roadless area, and the community of Sun River. So you can look up here and see where those fuels treatments are. They're all multicolored there along the west side of Sun River, and you can see where the low lava fire stopped, and that's right into the what we call the junction planning area. So that area's been heavily treated. We're almost complete with all the work in there. There's still a little bit of work going on, but in general, that fire did not make it through there. Where it did cross the 45 road is in an area that has just been treated and has not been burned or heavily thinned, but we were able to catch it there. So just want to point that one out. And if you look closer towards Sun River, you can see some of the other work that we've had over the years, which is Upper Deschutes River project, which along with around the Ann's Bead area, we did thinning and prescribed fire right up against the community. And I know you guys have smelled that smoke in the spring, right? It's a irritating thing when we do it in the spring and fall, but what that gives us is a lot of confidence that those treatments are going to hold. And if it's a burn treatment, it's going to hold for a long time. A thinning unit or something like that will change fire behavior as it'll put that fire closer to the ground. A burn unit will stop the fire usually. I've seen it multiple times where even a 5-10-year-old burn will catch embers and they just go out where they're at because the ground's been burned. There's not a lot of fine fuels to carry the fire. So anyways, we've done those treatments, and we also have done them out up to the west. If you look west of the Little Lava Fire, if you could kind of go out west of there, you can see the snow and mush projects from the past. That's where the fire hung up there over around Little Lava Lake. And again, that was an area that was heavily impacted by mountain pine beetle over the years, and we knew that we had Lava Lake Resort, high recreation in that area. So we've done fuels treatment in those areas where there's a lot of people so that we provide a safer spot for them to recreate and a less chance of the fire impacting off of Mount Bachelor into those values of risk. I think the other thing to point out is it's not just on that side of Sun River. For us, we went north and south along the river there. You see those fuels treatments. And we've also been treating out east, and what that does is provide you egress out of Sun River if you ever needed to because of a fire. So as you notice, when you go out Cottonwood Road or out Century Drive towards the highway, it's been treated on all four corners and burned because that's a high likelihood of being a good defensible spot to be pulling into. So just wanted to again point out that a lot of work's been done. And maybe you guys don't notice it all the time. As you drive around, you'll see a spot of it. But when you see it here and see how much this community's actually been protected from our standpoint around you, I hope you appreciate that. And also I hope you appreciate the amount of work that's been done within Sun River with your building codes to clean up no more cedar shakes on the siding and on the roofs. With the work that the Homeowners Association does and the neighborhood associations with cleaning up the fuels within Sun River, things look a lot better than they did when I was an engine captain in 1996, not wanting to be that first person on the fire. So kudos for you for allowing that work to happen and being willing to put up with some unsightliness, because restoration's not pretty, logging's not pretty when it first happens, and burning's not pretty. There's some red trees for a while, and I've heard probably from some people in the room not very happy about some red trees, but again, those breaks in the forest canopy is natural. What we have out on 97, that even-aged tree form, that all came up after that logging is not natural. There's too many trees. There's way too many trees out there. We're in a moisture-limited environment, and just recognize that That's not natural. Holes kind of blown in a little bit from fires over time is natural, and breaks in the timber between big trees and small trees are natural. So I think maybe pull out the flat top real quick if you could, just to show that one to you. Now the Firestone fire ran into a little bit of fuels treatment, but in general that one ran into an area out there. A lot of good firefighting happened on the south end, and on the north and east side it ran into kind of forested pumice. And there's not much between those trees out there. It's lodgeable with a lot of pumice on it, so that held up pretty good. But if you look at flat top, that held up on fuels treatment both on the northeast side and on the south end. When we first started doing underburning, this is the place where we learned to do it again. You know, it's been done historically over time by Native Americans when they wanted to clear off hunting areas or meadows. And so this area around here has had a lot of manipulation by fire, but we had to go learn how to do it again, and that's where we went and learned. I did one of my first qualifying burn assignments is right there on the south end of Flat Top. So those burn units have restored those old stands. Those are big open pine stands. And where we did those underburns, it was into a whole fire. You do notice that there's some of those burn units in the middle of the fire. If we could, we'll definitely post on social media, but there's a great helicopter flying over that where you can see those burn units got green trees, and where it wasn't burned, you got black trees. And it's very obvious what's happening. So again, I just want to highlight those treatments are out there. Again, we can't treat every acre, but we are trying strategically, in this case, trying to keep fires from coming off the forest onto the private land to the south and east. And also to restore those old pine stands and protect them over time too. So that's mainly why we've been treating out there. So anyways, I think you guys kind of get the picture of what I'm talking about, but I did want to highlight that these treatments are out there. A lot of people did a lot of great work, a lot of support happens from the community to keep those things going. So just want to point out that it's happening. We talk about cohesive strategies. So Cody mentioned about firefighters and how effective we are. Central Oregon's got some of the best firefighters, and they're very good at coordinating and working together across boundaries. I say bar done for a lot of places that I've worked. So we do very well putting fires down, but sooner or later you're going to get what we got the other day, which is more fires than you can deal with. And when you have that, you need to have resilient landscapes, and you need to have fire adapted communities to be successful. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we appreciate you supporting that. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Kevin. And next up, we have James Osborne, our incident commander. We'll close us out with what the plan is for the fires moving forward.
Well, good evening, folks. Thanks for coming, and definitely want to say thanks for your patience and support through the incident that we've had here. I'm also local. I've worked with Kevin in the forest for a long time, but happen to be part of this incident management team as well. So these fuels treatments are definitely key, super key on the landscape around all the communities in Central Oregon. So let's get another round of applause for the work that's been done. Thanks for that. This season's been a wild season. Over 24,000 people have been on the fire lines for the last several months. And the Northwest, Oregon and Washington, has led that effort with 12,000 plus people on fire lines in Oregon and Washington. So it's been an incredibly long year and an incredibly tough, challenging year. Specifically in Oregon more so than Washington. And so again, thanks for the patience for the smoke. Thanks for the patience and just the compassion that the folks have shown. So with that, we actually received some thank you cards from the folks at the school. So we took pictures with Chief Booth from Sun River Fire, and we got to share that back in. So I also want to say thanks to the cooperators. You all have cooperators and partners in this community, like Kevin mentioned, that are just fantastic. Everybody works together, helps each other out, and supports one another in getting the mission done and protecting the local community. So I want to point out Deschutes County Sheriff's Office and their support and work with us while we've been here, as well as Lake County. Obviously, the Firestone and flat top, the flat top there, that line that's about midway of the screen is all that portion's down in Lake County, so I wanted to call them out. Sun River PD, Sun River Fire Department, LaPine Fire Department, we've been working hand in hand with those folks the whole time we've been here. So I want to give a shout out to those folks. With that, what's coming next, right? And so our last shift on this incident is Sunday afternoon. We'll transition with a Type 3 team, which is a team that has a fair number of folks. They handle incidents that are extended attack. And then a lot of the times when we have these larger incidents and they start to ramp down in complexity, we pass those back to a Type 3 team. And so our local Central Oregon team is coming back. They actually started with the Firestone and the flat top. We came in, took that fire from them, managed it, got it locked off, like you heard from Cody, into that point where we're confident that it's not going to escape, it's not going to keep moving, but there is still some work left. And so our Central Oregon Fire Management Service Type 3 team is coming back. We'll in-brief them Saturday, so tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We'll in-brief them, we'll give them a full briefing on everything that's going on. And then Sunday, they'll shadow us. And so we'll give them all the information that we've learned for the 2 weeks that we've been here, show them all the in and outs of the fire, and then get them set up to take the fire Sunday evening in terms of being in command, what we call it. And so they'll be here for a period of time. And that team is coming. They'll be over on the Bachelor Complex, or Little Lava specifically. And then the rest of the fires that are in that complex will actually go back to the district themselves, and they'll keep an eye on that collectively. So with that, those folks will be out. We will leave a contingent of resources that we have, so we kind of pad them with the resources that we have, so they don't have to order anything new. We technically try to get folks to come in, to have some length of time in their tour, so that, when we transition, they don't transition with nothing, if you will. So they'll be here. We do have a Type 4, which is the next lower level in terms of typing. So we have Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, Type 4, Type 5. 5 being the least complex, Type 1 being the most complex. So a lot of the larger fires you see on the landscape that make the news are Type 1 and Type 2 fires, generally speaking. So Type 4 team, a couple of ICs and a slew of resources will actually be out on the Firestone and the flat top, patrolling, mopping up, and doing suppression repair for a period of time until that can just go into a general patrol and monitor status. So those folks will both come in and, like I said, shadow on Sunday and be prepared to be here, keep an eye on things, and make sure that the values at risk, like yourselves, the community, etc., aren't threatened. And if something changes, they'll be able to again ramp up and order things in and be prepared for what comes. So with that, that's kind of the general skinny. Again, want to say thank you to you all for coming tonight and your support that we've seen in the community while we've been here, and appreciate your interest and support again. Thank you.
Thanks, James. We now have some time for any questions that you might have. We have our folks that presented, and then we also have a few other special guests in the room, including folks from Oregon Department of Forestry, Deschutes County Sheriff's Office, Sun River Police Department, and the Pine Rural Fire Department. So if folks have any questions, just raise your hand, and I'll come around. Yeah.
I was wondering on the treatment maps, the legend, what the different colors mean. There's yellow, light green, dark red, light red.
This question is probably for Kevin. She's curious what the different colors mean on the treatment maps.
Yeah, so usually the green are mechanical treatment only, so thinning and mastication. things like that, they haven't been burned. Doesn't mean that they're not going to be, but that they haven't been. The yellow has been single, or I think the yellow is underburned units. The red ones are ones that have been re-entered recently. So they've been burned twice over, or 2 or 3 times over time. We try to re-enter those. It's super dry out there, that flat top area. It's like 12% annual precipitation. It's very big, old growth, yellow belly pines, all even age, but it's actually a really cool place out there. We try to re-enter those probably every 10, 15 years to keep that fire down, and it seems to work really well to do that, and it maintains it over time. I've seen it almost go up to 20 years before a re-entry and still hold, just ground fire when we go and burn it again. So it's not burning crowns, it's just running a foot and a half of fire across the ground out there and taking out those intermediate fuels. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an online address or something that we could get access to maps and things like this?
Question is there an online address where folks can get information like this?
Yeah, actually, there is. And if you wanted to Google RMA dashboard, it's Risk Management Assistance Dashboard. It's a forward-facing, public-facing dashboard that we use that has maps, it shows fires, perimeters of fires. It has a bunch of actually analytics that are probably way more in depth, but it does show fuels treatments and polygons of fuels treatments on there. It's a GIS-based system, so our mapping-based system that kind of everything is run on in terms of zoning, if you will, with counties, etc. And you can actually toggle on different things and play around with it without hurting anything. So you can see those fuels treatments, you can see different fires, and you can kind of keep up with what's going on in and around the area. And that actually shows nationwide anything that's going on.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Will the helicopter base that's at Sun River Airport, when will that cease being a helicopter base?
The question is how long the helibase in Sun River will be around.
It'll be here through our tenure for sure in terms of the amount of aircraft that are there, so through Sunday evening. It has been here all summer in terms of an aircraft or two. We use it as a satellite base in Central Oregon. So our main base is out of Prineville, where we have several helicopters, but we actually pre-position helicopters down here just for a quicker response. So I would imagine that there'll be a helicopter or two there that stays for a period of time until we get some season-ending moisture. But they'll be available for kind of all the fires that are in the area. It's just well placed for the south end of our zone.
Go here and then here.
So I live in Sun River, and I'm familiar with what we've done for ladder field elections. I also have property down in TRRH. And a couple of years ago, it seemed like the Forest Service offered some opportunities to clear lots and that kind of stuff, but that area still looks like a matchbox just waiting to go. Are there plans to continue that?
The question is, paraphrasing here, if there's more work planned in the DRRH area, both, it sounds like maybe federal and perhaps private opportunities as well. So we'll start with the federal.
So when we did a lot of cleanup as part of the Joint Chiefs project, and there was money available from the Forest Service and Natural Resource Conservation Service and others, grants for larger landowners, and then for the smaller landowners, we have Project Wildfire, and that's a great avenue for you to work together with your neighborhood associations and work to get grants to help you clean those areas up. They'll help you get stuff for maybe a chipper or a masticator mower or something, but or just pick up, right, for your neighbors to be able to get rid of all the needles and debris that they got. And then I'll throw it out to ODF if I missed anything.
Yeah, so I'll take the mic.
So, good evening, I'm Gordon Foster with the Oregon Department of Forestry, Unit Forester here in this area. So we do have multiple grant opportunities. Kevin mentioned the Joint Chiefs projects, which we implemented some of that for under the Joint Chiefs project. We also have community assistance grants. We actually just got awarded this year. We just got the funding this last month for an actual Pine Basin grant, and those grants actually, they're community assistance or Western State Fire Manager grants, and those actually go to private landowners to do cleanup around their properties. So I would ask that, you know, tell your neighbors that we have these opportunities, and you can see me afterwards. I'll give you a phone number for our office to contact our foresters.
One of the problems we have on the island area is that we have people who own properties that live there. They never can see, so we can't just go and clean their property. We can do what we can do at ours. But when guys are living wherever, they don't take care of the lots, and the rest is at risk.
Yep, and that's been a hard sell for us to get private landowners to do that when they're absentee. And so that's going to be one of our primary focuses with this upcoming grant, to actually try how can we outreach to those folks and how can we actually get more work done. Because some of the vacant lots or absentee landowners aren't around during fire season sometimes, and they don't see what occurs in communities like this.
No enforcement opportunities that way to require it?
No, we don't have any enforcement authority over fuels reduction on private lands.
Hey, Gordon, I can speak to that a little bit. And Gordon's absolutely right. We face the exact same challenge, certainly in Spokane, with one of the highest densities of small forest landowners in the state in that same environment. And I will say one indication that we are seeing, and there's some good and there's some bad with it. Insurance rates. Insurance rates thus far have been fairly strategic by zip code generally as far as risk. We're seeing insurance carriers now start to become much more granular in their assessments of homes, and I can't tell you with certainty where I see that going, but I think it's been, you know, risked by groups thus far as it relates to wildfire risk for homes. And if I compared that to driving records, if Jamie has a great driving record and I do not, and I have a lot of tickets, we pay different rates. And so we may see that in the future. I think we're starting to certainly see the early signs of that, and certainly the metrics that insurance carriers have are quite advanced. They're in that business to assess risk, and I think in the future we may see a different rate structure based on how good or the opposite we've done around our homes to create defensible space and become fire adapted.
The problem with that is that we can clear our problem. The guys next door don't. We're now being penalized because of their lack of work, and our insurance rates go up. So there needs to be some way to equalize that and force them to do something, because I can't go on the property and be trespassing.
Correct, and that's the challenge that we face. I agree 100% with your comment, right, is we could be at risk based on the actions we take or what our neighbors do. And that discussion's certainly been elevated through the Insurance Commission, and we're looking at that. And so there's, you know, we definitely have some work to do to make that better in the future, but that's one of the challenges we face.
But they don't have insurance on those vacant lots.
They may not, and so it's not perfect, but I will tell you that this change that we're trying to create is bigger than the federal agencies, the state agencies, or the local government. It starts here with this group. You know, we do a lot of fuels treatments in our district to make homes, you know, defendable, make them fire adapted or fire wise as we call them. And really our best way of getting the word out is it's neighbors helping neighbors, and you go out and establish some rapport and they go, hey, what are you doing over there? What's this program about? And try to create awareness. And again, right now there's no mechanism in place from a jurisdictional standpoint to force them to do that. And so these meetings tonight, this is our opportunity to go out and educate and inform. And like I spoke to earlier, the time to prepare for the next event is before we have one. And all of you can help us create that compelling reason in the community to make change, but it's gonna take a united effort all the way from the feds and state and local government, and we're all working in unison better than we have ever to this point, but we still, as you can see, we have a lot of work to do, and it's gonna take your help.
Right, I'm gonna honor my route here, so I'm gonna go here and then here.
I had a question about your burning operations. And I've really never seen you do it. Do you burn down everything to the ground, or do you burn the grasses and stuff underneath the canopies, or how? Because there is an area that's a pretty good burn area. I'm just wondering what that's going to look like.
Yeah, so the question is, what does our prescribed burning practices look like here? Oh, on the fire, okay.
So great question. Obviously, sometimes when we're doing firing operations on a wildfire, the conditions could be more challenging than what we would choose, right, if we were doing controlled prescribed fire. But certainly what they aim to do is try to minimize that fire intensity. And so what we'll study is the weather pattern, the predicted temps and relative humidity for the day, the way the winds are going to blow, and typically we'll step a fire off so that we're using the wind, and we'll go in and create lines of fire near that fire edge and let it work its way to the fire through successive lines as we come further and further off that fire edge, right, and let it come in slowly as compared to coming all the way out off that fuel light right at the line with the wind at your back and letting that fire run into the canopy. And so again, firefighters do their best job to really try to manage that intensity to try and leave the overstory intact and clean up the fuels underneath. But again, things are not perfect. In suppression, we don't have as much control over the weather as that we'd like, and so we're really balancing those suppression objectives with the timing, knowing that the longer we wait to potentially complete a burnout, the longer we may face more adverse weather conditions that could allow the fire to escape. But great question. Yes, we're doing our best to preserve that overstory and remove the understory fuels, and as you can imagine out there on the fire line, if fire is to get up in that overstory, which could be 100+ feet tall, and the flames are up there, certainly it creates more challenges in holding that fire. So the other thing that we do is on our containment lines, we go in and we prep those. And by prep, what we do is we go in and we remove ladder fuels on trees, we'll remove the lower limbs, we'll remove heavy fuels to try and keep that fire on the ground. So that's why we use that strategy to really control those conditions and try and reduce the fire intensity, but also clean up those fuels. And so it's never perfect, but we do our best to try and really reduce that intensity.
Just one thing I want to add, and it has to do with, again, the conditions that we're seeing this summer, because they are trying really hard, and we always try really hard when we're doing burnouts to try to save the remnant stand. But this year, as hot as it's burning, even those big open pine stands like I was talking about down the south end of the district, in those burned areas, those trees are dying. They're drought stressed. I mean, we went through multiple 100-degree days this year where we got a lot of drought stress, and there's a lot of high severity fire in spots that I didn't think I would see high severity fire. And I just want to let you know that's the conditions that we're working in. There's a lot of black trees in some of those areas, more than I thought there would be. In the areas where we've been fighting fire, you'll still see green and stuff like that because it was at a different time, but when it was running full on, the mortality is very high.
I think right here.
So I'm is in the moderate hazard risk category with MAP. Do you guys still recommend that you follow the principal states even if you're not in the high risk category?
Yeah, so the wildfire risk map just got finalized. I think there were public hearings this past June. So that, you want to follow those mitigation risks or the mitigation efforts that are outlined on that map. So.
Even if you're moderate?
Yes. Even if you're low, you want make sure you clean up around your home and keep it fire safe.
So insurance companies will look at it?
I can't tell you that the insurance companies will come and look at it, but you can probably request that.
Because the way that map's set out, you could be in a low risk, but you could do everything you need to do, and still be high risk area, even though your property is perfectly safe. That's the problem with our map, is that it needs to be more directed to landowner, and another.
Yeah, and I'm not the scientist and the staff that put that map together. It is not, they tried to go down to the smallest level they could, based on science, but it's all modeling. That's
So if you have questions related to that code, the Bureau of Financial Regulation, that's who kind of regulates insurance policies and so. Yeah, we don't have a lot to do.
Okay.
All right, we've got time for maybe these last two questions, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so I want to go back to the stand-up, if you stand up tonight. And some things that kind of bother me, like if they're saying we have near critical fire weather predicted for later today. Humidity's way down. It looks like your containment on the little lava is 37%. What is to stop a fire from crowning and coming our way real quick in the high winds? I know you're going to hand it over to another lower team Sunday, and I think maybe you're the guy that needs to answer all that. Thank you.
There's some questions around where we're at percentage-wise when it comes to containment and some of the weather that's forecasted, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so great question. Let's start with containment, because I think there's probably what you perceive as the definition of containment, and then how we would define containment on the fires. And so as we work through that definition of containment for us, I talked about our patrol and mop-up that we do. So we get lines all the way around the fire, and folks, probably a lot of you go, well, once that line's around the fire, that fire's contained. Our definition, though, is that that fire's not contained until we've gone in, we've mopped up, and we've removed found all those seek and destroy, all those hot spots, anything that could allow that fire to come out. And so really what we're looking to do is conduct mop-up operations to the extent that we minimize the potential for that fire to come out. And I talked about earlier, as much as we'd like to control the weather, that's our circumstances right now. There is some positive with the weather. The good news, because you're right, we have critical fire weather today. Today I think is the lowest we'll see for humidities going into the weekend, and kind of improves. But point being, this weather in our firing operations, where we talked about going in and removing that fuel that's between the established control lines and the fire, that has been very successful, and we get very good consumption of the fuels. Right now, when our big logs and other things burn, you go out on the fire, they almost look vaporized. There's nothing but a white line where they used to exist. And from a firefighting mop-up standpoint, once a fuel has burned and consumed, it's done. And so some of the good news we have under these conditions is those places we fired, they're consuming very well. And what we're looking is to convert that to no heat from that line to a certain distance, usually 100 to 300 feet, with no heat from that edge. And we're not going to increase that containment until we've reached that point. And so what I'll tell you right now is we're trending up drastically with containment. We are just conservative in that estimate, because we would really hate to tell folks that a fire is fully contained when there's still, albeit a low, potential for that fire to come out. And so again, that's what we're looking to, is to really improve containment as it relates to little lava fire all the way around that edge, and try to, again, we deal on probabilities, not certainties, but our goal is to minimize the potential of that fire coming out. But you're right, the weather, I would like to see a lot of rain in the forecast. I'm not seeing it yet. We would certainly appreciate that, but to the extent of the factors within our control, that's where we're focused. And this next organization will be prepared to scale up as appropriate based on those conditions.
So your manpower is currently 458 on that, but what's it going to be after Sunday?
it'll be approximately 150 after Sunday. So, and again, you may see that come down, you may see that go down even lower, or you may see it come back up if they see something that would indicate or necessitate a need for more. But as we move more into patrol and those lines being secure, that force will really just be focused on going out and watching those lines, because the mop-up should be complete. And once they minimize that potential for the fire to escape and they've established that buffer all around the edge, we don't encourage them to go further based on the risk. It may surprise you, but we kill a lot more firefighters from trees and snags than we do with fire. So once we minimize that threat of the fire coming out, we don't proceed further. So you may see some smoke in the community for a period of time still. There will still be that northwestern portion of Little Lava that will have an uncontrolled edge within direct lines. And so again, there's going to be a capable workforce here to monitor that. Thanks for the question.
And just to add on in terms of your question about the critical fire weather, so it is critical technically for this time of the year, but where we're at in the season, the length of time that critical piece hits during the day is so much shorter than what we would see in June, July, August, where the sun angle's high, etc. So we're seeing cold temps, freezing temperatures of the night, and so that time lag for those fuels to get back to that critical point where they're going to burn, like you would see during August, is really low. And so it's the 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon for about an hour, and then that sun starts to dip, and you get back out of that sort of critical fire weather, if you will. So that, in terms with the probability of moisture coming, like Cody was alluding to, we know it's coming. It's going to be here. And we're into that time of year that it is going to be here. And so we're doing what we can to build that catchment, like Cody talked about, so that it doesn't actually affect any of the values that have been identified through the agencies that we're here to serve and you all. But it will be monitored, we will be here, and we will be present. You can assure that.
I think we had one more question over here.
Once the fire is out, is there any value in the timber that's up there, or is it a complete loss?
Question is, once the fire is out, is there any value in the timber up there?
On Little Lava, there's not much value in the timber now. Again, because of that mountain hemlock piece. There are some valuable pieces, and we'll be looking at, is there any value, is there enough for a salvage, or are we just doing roadside? And we will do roadside just to keep our mainline roads open and make them passable. So we're looking at that. Bird trees have a short time frame, honestly, because they're so dry, and the value of that wood goes down fairly drastically. So it's a very short time frame. We'll look at it if we have an opportunity to get some of that value, and it lines up with the rest of the things that we hope that fire's going to look like in the future, then we'll do that. But yeah, we're currently doing that on the Darlene, looking at that on the Darlene fire right now, and we will assess these fires if there's any opportunity for that.
All right, thank you all for your great questions this evening and for joining us. Thank you for all of our partners for joining us as well. If you haven't already, there are some cards on the table over here that have all of the best places to stay informed on fire information as it relates to these incidents. And with that, we'll close out. Thank you so much and have a good evening.